There's a backlash in Bankstown in Sydney's southwest after the launch of one of the federal government's most controversial welfare reforms. Opponents say income management has been a disaster for Indigenous communities in the top end and doesn't help families. But supporters point to people in earlier trials who've then opted to stay on the scheme voluntarily.
No income management.
Not in Bankstown, not anywhere.
No income management.
Not in Bankstown, not anywhere.
This system is based on discrimination. It's based on prejudice. And I'm
Despite months of protests and petitioning, it's official. The federal government's controversial income management trial is now underway in the local government area of Bankstown, southwest of Sydney.
It's a sad day for us to stand here and see this system now being enforced on Bankstown against the wishes of the local community.
Bankstown is one of 5 trial areas across Australia, chosen in part because it has high levels of long-term unemployment and also high child protection notifications.
I think people are feeling anxious. I think they're concerned about what might happen to their friends and neighbours, whether someone's going to be tapped on the shoulder and say, look, we want to quarantine your income.
What I'd like to do is just give you this.
Pam Batkin heads Woodville Community Services, one of a string of organisations which have joined forces to fight the trial.
But we're really concerned about income management.
The Say No to Income Management Coalition is staging what it calls a vigil outside the local Centrelink office, the administrators of the trial.
There is a considerable weight of national and international research that says these forms of conditional welfare don't help people manage their money better and they don't help people look after their families better.
Obviously there's a need for it, okay, because you know we've all seen those images of children that are hungry, haven't got food, where the parents have gambled or drunk the money away. So there is obviously a need to intervene with controlling the welfare money.
Under the trial, which is part of the federal government's Stronger Futures legislation, 50 to 70% of welfare recipients' payments will be put onto a basics card, which can be used only to pay for essentials such as food, housing, clothing and utilities.
I think people need to consider, is it better that I have help with income management so that I can put food on the table and make sure my children aren't neglected, rather than have my children removed because of child neglect?
Those chosen for the program fall into 3 categories: people identified as financially vulnerable, those referred to Centrelink by child protection authorities, or those who volunteer to take part.
When people are tapped on the shoulder by a Centrelink worker or someone from child protection authorities and they go into their local shops with a basics card, they hand it over. The people in the shops will know that there's someone who isn't coping, perhaps someone who has been identified as not looking after their children properly, perhaps someone who's behind in their rent. So the basics card and income management actually humiliates people.
The card can only be used in major stores.
Critics point to not only the big picture but day-to-day practicalities. They say this is a multicultural community with needs which may not be satisfied at the big supermarket chains.
Different communities, they shop in smaller shops, in culturally specific shops. Lebanese go to Lebanese shops, they buy certain groceries, certain types of food that can only be purchased from one particular place. So those shops probably are not equipped to accept basics card.
There's a big feeling that we're going to be targeted again here, and actually any black-skinned person, that's how they feel.
Bankstown also has a large Indigenous community, and many are anxious that the system, which they say didn't work in the Northern Territory, is being imposed on them in suburban Sydney.
I believe that the government's, with this measure, the government's actually introducing a class system in Australia, and almost as if people on welfare are being demonised as being gamblers, drunkards.
We need to remind people that this is welfare money that's to be used for the welfare of the people.
Psychologist and lecturer in Indigenous health Anthony Dillon believes there is a place for income management, and he's critical of groups opposing the scheme.
The message given by the protesters, say that this is a government conspiracy, it's control, it's paternalism, you know, all those emotive terms, only reinforces a person's resistance to it. To the critics, I would say, try living in a community where welfare money gets squandered. Would you leave your children in such a community?
It's dictating to people how to live their lives, where they're going to spend their money. It's extremely wrong for our government to step in and do that.
So if income management isn't the answer, what is?
It is about creating opportunities. It is about looking at what people, and it's about creating that kind of services, case managing. Sometimes it's case management, sometimes it's working closely with people on how is it that we can improve their lives. Looking at a holistic way of approaching certain people who are stuck in situations and looking at it differently.
So would you like to slide your card through, please?
The version of the scheme being trialled in New South Wales is a hybrid of the type used in the Northern Territory and another being trialled in Western Australia. As to the success of those schemes, well, it depends who you talk to.
The evidence that we have from the Western Australian experience and from the Northern Territory and Cape York is that it helps families. That's really what this is about. It's an additional tool to help families better manage their money in the interests of their children, to make sure that welfare payments are spent on the essentials of life.
Reject the intervention in the Territory. Reject income management in Bankstown. An institute of...
It's early days for the Bankstown trial. Those opposed say they will continue their vigil outside Centrelink and will be carefully monitoring the response of people who are placed on the trial.
We would like the government to see that income management is an unproven, costly policy that humiliates and stigmatises people, and stop it.
And 7:30 New South Wales approached Jason Clare, the local federal MP, for an interview on the topic, but he was not available.